Now let's assume we are part of forensic team and we were given some indicator which was suspicious or noticed in suspicious activity, and we would like to investigate it further. Before we start, I would like to make sure we understand that this is a training example, and any assumption about maliciousness of this indicator is nothing but only for training exercise. I am not making any judgment about maliciousness of this. It might be, or most likely is, a benign and honorable activity on the internet, but for the sake of the exercise, we just assume that is something worth investigating. And what was worth investigating is this email address. Let's try to find anything about this email address in Google. As you can see, there are no results found. Let's try and see whether even Yandex know anything about this. So we go to Yandex and we try to search Yandex for this specific email. As you can see, there is nothing there. Nothing. Potentially, we might be stuck. And then we got an idea. Why don't we go and check whether that email address was ever found among 10 billion of pwned accounts? So we go to have I been pwned? And just for the sake of the exercise, let me look at my email address. Oh, I have been pwned. In fact, many, many times. So if I have been a part of malicious activity, for example, law enforcement might have subpoenaed any of these service providers to figure out whether any additional records exist. For example, my name, my address, my phone number, anything, my credit card number, if I use some paid services. With the same assumption, we will try to find whether this email address can give us any leads. Apparently, we hit a black wall. Nothing is known, whether in Google, whether in Yandex, whether in largest database of compromised accounts. And because it's just in our exercise a suspicious activity, asking Yandex, for example, may not necessarily be a successful exercise because we don't have enough evidence of anything to ask Yandex to give us more information. What can we do to investigate? Then we got an idea. What if this email address is part of any contact records in a passive DNS? What can we do? We go here, we look and put this specific email address, and we'll try to execute regular expression on the resource data. Because we know that the contact information is being communicated through DNS on the right side of the DNS record. Now we also know that @ is not the legitimate symbol on DNS in DNS infrastructure. That should be a literal dot. And because we execute a regular expression, we need to make an escape. Same we do with this dot. Let's go through any records. And when we do search, we found nothing. And then one of our team members suggested, look, what if the owner of this email may not necessarily be very familiar with DNS conventions, and maybe they use the forbidden symbol communicating this contact information. Some team members were skeptical and some others decided just to try. And voila, they found something that no one else was able to find before. And for that, they also was thinking a little bit outside of the box, outside of the standards and RFCs, which are written in volumes. What you can do now, you execute a standard query now, which Scout will prepare for you, and now you found domain where that particular email was in the contact information in responsible person, responsible contact record. Very rare record, really, but you were lucky. Now you click here and you discover all the infrastructure. You can go clicking on IP to figure out what are other domains or hosts are being hosted on that domain, or you can go through the name server records and figure out what are other domains being hosted on that name server. Based on that, you potentially may make conclusions whether that specific email address was suspicious, benign, or malicious. Once again, this is just an exercise for us to go through, just to demonstrate the power and methodology and power of collected data within passive DNS. I would like to go through another example, also with with an email address. That would be this one. Just to save your time, I already have been in Google, I have been with Yandex, I have been with whether this email was compromised, have I been pwned, and there were no records at all of this. And with the same methodology, because not everyone is DNS expert, and therefore not everyone would use dot instead of @ I will execute the regular expressions on the right-hand data or resource record data. And when I search, I found something interesting which I would like to ask to look at. Once again, this could and most likely is an honorable activity of people who maintain these domains, and I make no judgment on maliciousness of this email address or this activity. This is only for exercise purposes. But I immediately can find even a name of a person who potentially hold this email. And the name of this person is Dmitry Bulanov. So what we can do now, we can go and search internet whether we can find, let's say, LinkedIn profile of this system administrator, and maybe we potentially can contact that person. Why? Because if you send email to this address, you not necessarily would be able to successfully land this email where it needs to be, because after plus sign, that is a label which would not let you send an email successfully. Once again, these are just exercises for us to demonstrate the power of historical data, power of passive DNS, most importantly, power of flexible search, the new feature we introduced on October 20th, 2020. Now, when you use this kind of investigations, once you do several steps, then you would need to execute more queries to understand the infrastructure behind and so on. Doing it in a graphical interface potentially might be very cumbersome, and for that, we definitely recommend you to automate. We have API, we have command line utilities, which you can exploit to construct a large volume of queries. And for that, Scout will help you tremendously to understand how to construct either command line interface parameters or API calls, because here you would have a tip which would facilitate your learning. To conclude, we found an indicator of compromise or suspicious activity. We tried Google, we tried have I been pwned, we tried the owner of this potential email domain, the Yandex in this case, and we found no traces. And then using our creativity and assumption that that specific owner of this email not necessarily is DNS expert, we constructed a query through regular expression, through flexible search, and identify not only infrastructure in both cases, but also some additional information. In this particular case, we found the name, Dmitry Bulanov. Once again, this is no, in any case, casting doubts on honorable activities of this person or this domain. This has been done only for training purposes and help you to go outside of standard thinking to fight malicious activities on the internet.